Hey everyone, we are here today to talk about sonnets. So Shakespeare, if you remember from our notes, wrote 154 sonnets, so a ton of them. And he actually includes sonnets in Romeo and Juliet. It's pretty incredible that he was able to include poetry with characters speaking back and forth. So that's why we're talking about Shakespeare sonnets. I know some of you are thinking, why are we even talking about sonnets when we're reading Romeo and Juliet? Well, that's because Romeo and Juliet has sonnets in it. And actually the very, very first piece that we're going to read of Romeo and Juliet is the prologue that introduces the play. And guess what the prologue is? A sonnet. All right, so just so you know, just some basic info. A sonnet must be at least 14 lines. It's very, very strict. You have 14 lines exactly. So that's how you can always check. If we ever ask you a question, count how many lines. If it's 14, it's probably a sonnet. It also has to be written in iambic pentameter. It's a super fancy name. We're going to get to that in just a second. It's actually a pretty easy concept once you understand it. It can be on any subject, though typically about love or nature. Shakespeare includes both in his different sonnets. And in Romeo and Juliet, obviously, it's about love. Romeo and Juliet, when they first meet, they finish each other's sonnet. It's crazy. Also introduces a problem or question in the beginning, and kind of some resolution is offered. There's a little turn at the end, a little shift, if you will. So we'll look at that. And it must follow a very specific rhyme scheme depending on the type of sonnet. And so we're going to be looking obviously at English Shakespearean sonnets for this one. Next. So this is an interesting point to keep in mind, that you have, Pinta, sorry for the noise. Pinta means 5, all right, like pentagon. So some of you are thinking, what do you mean it's written in iambic pentameter? Well, there are actually 5 what we call feet within each line. Don't get too wrapped up in this part of it. Pretty much what we're looking at is that every line in one of Shakespeare's sonnet is going to have 10 syllables total. And so in iambic pentameter, you have an unstressed right here, the first unstressed, and the second is a stressed syllable. So we use syllables all the time in our speech, and we just don't even realize it. Bottom line, every line in Shakespeare's sonnet is going to have 10 syllables in line. And so it's better to kind of hear it. So here's an example. It says, this rhythm is similar to a heartbeat. So, da-dum, 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 da-dum. That's what it actually sounds like if you were to break it down every line and actually try to hear the beat of it. So, to house holds both alike in dignity. That's the first line of Romeo and Juliet. To house holds both alike in dignity. 10 syllables. If you continue to do that, you'll notice, I think it's over 60% of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is written in iambic pentameter. Can you imagine how long that took him or what a genius he was, that almost every other line is, 10 syllables. It's amazing. And so again, you have unstressed. To house holds both alike in dignity. I think John Green mentioned this as well. He talked about his son. Daddy, I want to go to Steak and Shake. 10 syllables. Again, it's got that da-dum feel. Just so you know, I'm going to show you a visual of this, and all of this will hopefully make sense in just a moment. It includes 3 quatrains. This is groups. If you look at a quatrain, quad, right? Groups of 4 lines, and then you're going to have a couplet. That's going to be important for you to remember. A couplet is when you have 2 lines that rhyme back to back at the end of the poem. So if you guys are familiar with the rhyme scheme, it's the very last word in each line rhymes, right? So we have this A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme. I'm about to show you what this looks like, so don't let that throw you off. And then at the end, they call it a heroic couplet. That's those 2 lines at the very end of the poem that rhyme, and there's usually a turn at the end again. So here's what it would look like. Again, this looks very mathematical, but you should be able to count right here. There are 14 lines, and it definitely hits this exact rhyme scheme where the end of this line is going to rhyme with the end of this line. All right, and again, at the very end, there's a little bit of a turn or a shift. So let's take a look at what this actually looks like in one of his sonnets. This is sonnet 130. I want you guys, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give you a quick overview of this poem. This poem is written, he writes in early modern English, Shakespeare does. So sometimes you have to feel like you're translating a little bit, but bottom line, he's kind of pointing out all of his mistresses or his lovers, all of her flaws. So he's talking about all the things that his lover looks like, and he's not saying necessarily nice things about her, but then you're going to see a shift at the end, how he really feels about her, but he's kind of bashing how she looks in this. So if you take a look at this, notice that the first line, sun, at the end of the line, A, sun, we'll call that A, of the rhyme scheme. Sun rhymes with done. So sun and done. So it's A. Red does not rhyme with sun, so we're going to say B. So A, B, A. Guess what red rhymes with? Head. So B. A, B, A, B. Then you see white rhymes with delight. And so we're going to change it because that white doesn't rhyme with either of these other ones. So A, B, C, D, C, D. All right. And then E, F, and look at these last two lines back to back. Rare and compare rhyme. They're right back to each other, so that's GG. That's the couplet. It's when you have those two end words at the end rhyming together. So if I were to actually do the iambic pentameter, every single one of these lines, guys, is 10 syllables long. So my mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. 10 syllables. Coral is far more red than her lips red. Sometimes you have to kind of stretch a little bit. If snow be white, why then her breasts are done. All right, so he's telling us that her breasts are not overly attractive. They're a little gray. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. So he's saying her hair is, I guess, not combed back. I have seen roses damasked, both red and white, but no such rose as see I in her cheeks. So you can keep going and keep going. So he's saying, all sorts of things here. He's saying, in some perfumes is there more delight than in my breath that which my mistress reeks. So he's saying that her breath does not smell very good. I love to hear her speak, but music has a better sound. So Shakespeare, this is not your typical love sonnet. He's definitely kind of bashing her a little bit there. He says he never saw a goddess go, but my mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. So again, treads is not usually the most positive word. She's not gliding, she's treading. So she's not, I guess, very graceful. But look at this shift. Did you see how it's indented, these last two lines? And this is line, 13 and 14, lines 13 and 14. You have right here, and yet by heaven I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare, as any person that's been misunderstood. So he's saying that, yes, she has all of these qualities about her. However, I love her. So who cares? And everyone else that says that their mistress's eyes are the most beautiful things in the world are perhaps not being genuine. So is it really a love poem? Or, I don't know that I know many women that would like to have all of their flaws exposed like this and then say, but I love you anyway. That's kind of what Shakespeare's doing. A lot of people think that he's kind of making a joke on the typical love sonnet here. But that's a little bit of Shakespeare's sonnet. And so again, I just want to make sure you guys have the basics, which are 14 lines. You have the A-B rhyme scheme, and then C-D. And you also have that couplet at the end that rhymes. And there's usually some kind of shift. So again, here I'm talking about all her crazy qualities that are physical. However, I really do love her. And so you're going to see that when we read the very, very first part of Shakespeare. It's going to introduce the whole story. So you're going to see, for instance, two households both alike in dignity. That's going to be where we are introduced to the Montagues and the Capulets. They're both very wealthy, and they're also going to have a conflict. So what we're going to do next is actually take a look at the prologue, and we're going to kind of try to translate it and see what Shakespeare's doing. But just keep in mind, iambic pentameter as well as 10 syllables per line. Shakespeare was a crazy, crazy genius. Thank you guys for sitting with me through sonnets, and we will review soon. Thanks, guys.